Good morning, everyone. I know you're just coming in. We've got a lot of people actually coming in. We're so excited for a Friday morning with Debbie Grote and Forward Coaching. We've got a great topic today, one that I'm really excited about, Debbie. We're going to give everybody another 30 seconds to come in and can join us.
Awesome.
But just want to say happy Friday to everybody. Hope you have big plans for the weekend, or maybe you don't. I know it's very, very hot across the country, and
Yes.
so I hope everybody's staying very cool as well. There's some record-breaking weather going on in lots of parts of the country. And then, Debbie, there's people in Houston just battling some pretty big storms and other things in Texas. So I know a lot of people going through it. And we've missed you, Debbie, for
Yes.
3 weeks. I know you went through a surgery with
I
it
did.
complicated your voice.
Yes, it's the worst thing that could potentially happen. They tell you 1 in 1,000, we do this little surgery,
Oh, no.
damages the vocal cord. And of course, I was the 1 in 1,000, but they fixed it. It's getting better. Each week you guys hear me, I should be a lot better. So it feels fine. Just sounds a little crazy.
The bad news, maybe I'm speaking a little bit more than I normally do, but we're glad to have you back, Debbie. We had
great to
Drew
be
Lee here 2 or 3 weeks ago, and Drew's such a sharp individual. You've got just great people in your organization helping real estate agents across the country, and really appreciate you. So with that, just kind of caveat that Debbie's voice is still kind of coming back to that new normal. We'll go ahead and jump right into it. Debbie, I love the topic today.
Yes.
And I know we're hitting on a lot of different topics every other Friday with our group, but the power of questions is just a tremendous reminder of who we are as real estate professionals and what we need to be doing and how we need to be communicating with our customers. Before we do that, let's just kind of cover real quick who you are, remind everybody, and then we've got a quick announcement and we'll jump right into it.
Yeah, so co-founder, CEO of Forward Coaching. I started selling real estate at the age of 18. And I think I was very fortunate that I had a broker who was a great salesperson. And he really pushed me to learn some amazing sales skills. One of the things that he always emphasized is a terrific salesperson is not a great talker. A terrific salesperson has mastered the art of asking incredible questions and really being that active listener. And of course, when you ask questions, you can gain information, but you can also help that prospect self-realize and self-discover. And one of the best ways to establish rapport is ask people questions about things that matter to them.
So good. And Debbie, I know you've got a little bit of an offer, a really cool program going on. You want to talk about that just real quick?
Yeah. And so first of all, I want you guys to understand there is no strings attached to this. There is no cost. There is no upsell or promotion. This is a pure gift for all of you.
How cool.
See, we know that a few weeks from now, very short period of time, we're going to be undergoing a massive change in our industry. And that's going to involve becoming a much more active negotiator, because you're going to have to get deeper into the fray of negotiating commission between your buyers and your sellers, which I think presents a great opportunity, but it's also going to require skill. So Sean, Ben and Chris and I got together and we said, we want to give a gift to the real estate industry. No charge, no agenda, just our way of paying it forward and helping all of you get ready for this. So this class has 12 modules. I think the next slide might actually even break it down, and then we'll click back to this one. Oh, good, the QR code's there. 12 modules, so you can watch them when you choose. Also, after the 12 weeks, you will still have another 45 days to access this course, because this is a one-time offer. Once the 12 weeks and 45 days are done, we're going to sell this course for $1,000. So this is your freebie. Take advantage of it, but you'll have that 45-day window. And we've attached some really incredible scripts and resources, including scripts to deal with the commissions, with the buyers, and with the sellers. So all you have to do to access it, scan the QR code. You'll be right into the negotiations portal. And again, no strings attached, except I'd love to hear how you like it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Debbie, let me give that voice just a break for just a second. So everybody pull out your phone, pull your camera out, scan that code. It's going to give you a link. And guys, come on, a free 12-week course, not only just with Debbie, but with two of the best ballers in our industry, right?
Yes.
So you got Debbie DeGrote, you got Ben Kinney, you got Chris Soares. Guys, these three people are leading 350 of the top teams across the country and helping them become the most productive real estate agents in our industry. You got to take part of this. And so scan that QR code. We got to run now to the topic, but I hope everybody's pulled out the camera, scanned the code, and signed up for that. What a tremendous offer.
And you know,
really appreciate that, Debbie.
If you have any trouble with the code, you can email me, Debbie@forwardcoaching.com. And I also would say you are welcome to share this with your friends, with your office, your company. This is our gift to the industry. So do with it what you will. And if you cannot scan the code, just email Debbie@forwardcoaching.com and we'll help you.
I love that. I love that. Scan that code, pull up the link, send it to everybody in your office. What a tremendous opportunity to speak with just an incredible team with Debbie, Chris, and with Ben. Yeah. Such a cool offer. Thanks again, Debbie, for doing that.
Welcome.
Okay, so we're going to jump right into the topic today, and we're always 30 minutes or less. Debbie, we've got about 20 slides to get through in about the next 20 minutes. The power of questions. Debbie, there's two things in my life. Questions are so impactful in our business, right? Here and for me, I'm not always in production working my real estate license. I'm oftentimes working with like developers and data kind of geeks, right? And so sometimes my questions actually get me in trouble because I'm really curious and I want to know everything. And so we're going to talk about some things, the power of questions. What are the right questions and how do we ask those questions?
Yes.
And more importantly, how does that pull us back into rapport and keep us in rapport? And so I want to get into a lot of that today. So the first slide, to help our clients, our customers, our buyers, our sellers, to help them and our prospects achieve their goals and solve their problems, we must ask great questions. And what that really means is the right questions at the right time and still establishing rapport. How do we do those things, right?
Well, and I think the thing too is we can ask the surface questions like how many bedrooms and baths, what's their price point? But what about the questions of why is now a time that they thought this was the right opportunity to make their move? What changes in lifestyle are they looking to accomplish? What are some of their concerns about this process that they need information? So I think we fall into a rut of asking the boilerplate questions, which are not really getting into their head. And I think part of that, as we say on the screen here, usually real estate agents aren't really trained on this at the same level that other professionals are, like doctors and attorneys and therapists. But we should be, because our power to ask questions is as impactful as it is for them.
No question. And it's not just a transaction. We're talking about people's most important investment in their life. We've got to ask those important questions. We got to know what they're thinking of about specific things so we can manage their expectations as well. Love that. All right. So we weren't taught the skill. We weren't really born with the skill. So important reminders, things that we have to kind of just think through as we're asking these questions. And this is why we're kind of talking about it today.
Well, and so here's what's interesting. I read a book that said that the average 4-year-old, and some of you might have a 4-year-old in your household, asked up to 300 questions in a week. and the average college student asks one. So maybe it's because our moms told us not to be nosy, or we just grew up and lost interest in asking about, the world and people. But some of you may naturally be inquisitive or have a very high EQ. Even so, most of us could still work on this skill.
Yeah, no question. I think about my 5 boys, Debbie. I got my basketball team over here, and I've got 2 boys, my youngest and my oldest. They're so inquisitive, so curious. They asked a million questions at that age at 4. And then I've got these other ones that I really worry about. And my wife and I, we're always kind of pushing academically. And it's so important, right, to be curious and ask questions and to constantly learn. I love the quote, learn to love to learn. And as we're asking questions, we're curious, we're learning about these people, learning about their expectations, and how we can best help buy and sell with these different properties that we're working with. Bottom line, guys, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I just thought of a story of my first luxury buyer as a newer agent. I was so excited. At the time, it was $1 million property, which was a lot at that time.
Definitely.
And they told me, I want a house with a bonus room. And there were some bonus room floor plans in the area, but none were for sale. So I kept looking, couldn't find them anything. Called them one day on a Monday, and they said, you'll be so happy for us. We bought a house yesterday. Well, I wasn't happy. And I said, but how? There's nothing for sale with a bonus room. They said, oh, we bought one with a guest house in the back. And I said, but wait, you didn't tell me you wanted a guest house. They said, well, you didn't ask. They said, we have a home office, a home business, and the guest house is perfectly fine. But you know what I realized? I didn't ask them why they needed the bonus room. And the other heads up I would say to all of you today, a very important assignment. The buyers that you currently have, in many parts of the country, inventory is lean, and they're not finding matches. So every 2 weeks, you should be going back saying, can we open up new areas? Would you spend more if you thought you could find your ideal home? I know you wanted a 3-car garage, but if the home were perfect in every other way, would you look at properties with a 2-car garage? See, we take their order, but if it doesn't match what's available in the market, sometimes we just hang out there and that buyer goes nowhere. So you got to take control, ask questions, massage that criteria, and offer alternative suggestions to get them into a home.
Gosh, those are good. I hope everybody's writing those questions down because it's so important. I just think about me as a consumer and as a buyer. Those things change every day, right? Like, well, maybe I don't want 5 acres. Maybe I can deal with half an acre, and so we kind of limit those areas of what we're looking for. And so, bottom line, Debbie, is I don't think we know enough about our clients, right? We got to continue to ask and get updates from them. I love that. So, guys, asking questions achieves an information exchange and liking. Persuasion will not likely occur without liking. So, Debbie, you talk a lot about rapport, right? And questions are going to help us get in that area, right?
Yeah, and I think when I think of rapport, sometimes people think establishing a commonality. Oh, you golf, so do I. No, that's not rapport. Rapport is eye contact if they're in front of you, asking great questions about what's important to them, giving your acknowledgement and approval. I understand. I get it. Absolutely, that makes sense. Let me ask another question. Listening, not stepping on the end of their sentences, not interrupting them. And I actually budget my talking that in an interaction, it should be 50% me, 50% them, but half of my 50% should be me asking questions. So if you happen to be over 80 on the disc in the I category, very, very, very expressive, unless you've learned to manage that, probably you're talking too much. Okay, so I think we really have to watch that because they want to be heard, they want to be understood, and they want to think that you actually care, right?
Just to restate, 50-50, I like that, but more importantly, 50% asking questions, just not coaching and vomiting all over our clients, but actually being inquisitive. So good. Okay. Something else in our slides that we want to talk a little bit about is one of the most critical steps to building deep rapport is asking questions about things that matter to them, right? Like a lot of times, Debbie, we're asking questions that matter to us.
Right.
And we've got to really put ourselves in their shoes and ask questions that matter to them. I think, gosh, there's so many keys to good questions, but that's one of them.
So here's something interesting. Some of you may have read the book, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Chris says that in any interaction, you can ask easily up to 14 questions. Now, remember, Chris is an FBI hostage negotiator, teaches negotiation at the Harvard Business School. So this has been a deep study around this. And he says it can be easily up to 14 questions. But what's important is how you stack the deck of those questions. So he suggests start with the tougher, deeper questions first. That's why I asked Sean, it's a challenging market to find a home. I'm curious, what sparked your desire to do so at this time? I'm going to ask that first. I'm not going to ask him how many bedrooms he wants. Also, Chris said, and I think it pops up in the slides later, think about what you think their response will be, or think about what you're looking to have them self-discover. So these interactions are so important. I would suggest you write your questions down prior to the meeting. Put them in order that you feel makes the most sense. And Sean, there's nothing wrong with me sitting down with you and saying, Sean, I was so excited to meet with you today. And last night, I took some time and I prepared some important questions. Would it be all right with you if we go through those questions together at this time? Right? So lots of preparation, watching the tonality. We don't want it to sound like an interrogation. Want to be careful with that. And never having that tonality of judgment, always curiosity.
Always. And I like what you just said there with Chris Voss, 14 questions deep. A lot of times I'll ask one question and they'll answer and I'll make an assumption on that answer, but really we need to double click, right? We need to go a little bit deeper, go, well, what did you mean by that? And find out a little bit more. I think that's, so important. Okay, both the amount and type of questions you also ask matter. And we've touched on this a little bit. Anything else there you wanted to touch on, Debbie?
Nope, I think we're pretty good. But here
so this is what you're referencing. Yeah. And this was eye-opening to me because I didn't remember this from How to Split the Difference and this Harvard study. But 14 questions, how often do we only go 1, 2, maybe 3 questions deep? The solution here is really what we're trying to say is, guys, it's okay, right? Like dig a little bit deeper, try and really understand how they're communicating, what they're trying to say as we ask questions. Don't just take that first layer and make an assumption that that's exactly what it is, right? Like sometimes I'm saying something and someone else is interpreting that another way. So important to ask a follow-up question to understand that.
Right. So and I think that's in the slides here in a minute, the clarifying question. So I always say, make the clarifying question your friend. And the clarifying question does not require any preparation. But let's say, for example, Sean, you said, well, Debbie, I'm there to list your home, right? And he says, well, I don't have to sell. Well, I could launch into some lecture about the market, or I could say, Sean, I'm curious. Tell me, what are other options you're considering besides selling the home? Because is what he said true, or is he just posturing? Well, if he says, well, actually, I was considering renting it out. Oh, have you owned rentals in the past? Well, yes, I actually own 5. I'm thinking, okay, now this is a guy that might rent it out. But if a seller says, oh, I don't have to sell, well, what are your other options? Well, I don't really have any. Well, if you couldn't sell the home, could you still make your move? Well, no, I guess I need the cash, right? So I think that clarifying question, I think of it as scuba diving instead of water skiing. So you get their answer, and you may need to go 3, 4, or 5 questions deeper to make sure you really understood what they said.
Water skiing. It's the surface conversations that we got to get past to get deep with our customers, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so good. Okay, so we're going to kind of keep getting to this, but yeah, the clarifying questions is what we've been talking about, right?
Yeah.
Are we willing to dive deeper? Are we willing to invest in our customers and our clients enough to know and understand them on a deeper level? I think is, gosh, really key to our success.
And I think when you clarify, as it said here, they feel like you're really listening. And to keep it from sounding like an interrogation, we can use our question softeners. I'm curious. I was wondering, may I ask? Can I go a little deeper in that with you? But always that tonality, because here's a good checkup. If you look at each of the hot leads you have, buyers and sellers, do you actually know the who, what, where, when, why, and how about them? Because if there's any gap in that, call them back. Say, I was studying the information. I want to help you at a higher level. And there's a couple of additional questions I'd like to ask you. So just like high school journalism, first day in the class, they wrote that on the board, who, what, where, when, why, and how. And I didn't realize it's going to show up again in real estate.
Okay, so we know it's important to ask more questions, dive a little bit deeper. We're going to keep moving here a little bit, but the follow-up and the clarifying questions, so important for us.
Yeah, I
think
think
get you away from the scripting, right, Debbie?
Well, you do need to have a script, and you do
question.
have your prepared questions. But I think if you're robotic and overly scripted, you might be so focused on saying the next thing on your script that you miss that opportunity to dive in. That's why you need to practice your scripts, because when they're internalized, when you can dance with them, you're not going to be thinking about what will I say next. Instead, you'll be listening to what they have to say.
All right, tonality. This is something, there's a couple things on these slides that I struggle with. One of them is tonality. I think it's so important to be genuinely interested in our tonality. Really reflects that, doesn't it, Debbie?
Well, and keep it light and keep it calm, especially if you're digging in on a tougher negotiation. Chris Voss said in his master class, if you have an aggressive, strident tonality, then you have to understand that is not going to work well for you. So bottom line, he's saying, tone it down, calm it down, neutral. Because when they're going through this real estate stuff, lots of anxiety, lots of tension. When you talk fast, when you talk aggressive, it shuts them down. It raises their anxiety. It breaks rapport. So picture a heart monitor and think flatline. I need to flatline. I need to be calm. You know, if a seller wanted to overprice their home by 20%, I could say, well, why do you think you can get 20% more than your neighbor? Or I could say, Sean, tell me a little more about this. Tell me what caused you to think about the 20% increase. Talk me through that, will you? Like, it's just tonality is so magical. It's the difference between they actually tell you the truth or they put up a defense or they just clam up. So here's your question, softeners. I'm curious. I was wondering, may I ask, please tell me, or tell me, please. I just simple. And you don't ask it in front of every question. You just sprinkle these in.
Yeah, and Debbie's Knob's asking the question, what if the prospect is not opening up enough? What if they're closed, their body language is just kind of more kind of held back or reserved? I think these question softeners are very important to try and help people open up and be softer in the way where we're asking those questions as well.
Well, and in the negotiations course, there are modules on those who are tough to communicate with, understanding and adapting to personalities. Because, for an example, a super analytical or a super high D person, they may appear more withdrawn and chilly. A high D won't necessarily talk much, and they don't smile a lot. A high C will actually frown as you're speaking to them because they're taking in that information and disseminating it in their head. So sometimes there's nothing wrong with the communication. It's just that you don't communicate the way they do, so you feel uncomfortable, right? But we're going to dive into that in the negotiation course.
Curiosity versus judgment. Obviously, we want to be curious and we want to avoid the judgment area, don't we?
Yeah, just don't use the word why, okay? Just get rid of that, because anytime you say to someone, why do you think that? Or why are you doing that? It's basically arguing. It's really saying, they're going to either argue back, clam up, or they're going to give you an excuse. So instead, just ask what? What causes you to believe that it might be possible for us to get 20% more for your home? I would love to hear your strategy.
Debbie, of all the notes today, I hope everyone's writing this one down. I personally struggle with this. I'm a why guy, and I'm very conscious of it now, and I try to ask the what question. I hope everybody counts how many questions you're asking that start with why. We definitely want to avoid those and come from more curiosity, and then use those questions, those softener questions that you started with as well, Debbie. I think it's key.
Take the edges off, right? Just takes the edges off.
No question.
So this is important. Just ask one question at a time. Sometimes we'll string together 2 or 3 questions, or we'll ask a question that's really vague and they don't know how to answer, so they just won't answer. And also, when you ask a question and they answer, I want you to think in your mind, pause, pause, pause. Because here's an example, Sean. If I said to someone, tell me, why did you decide to buy a home at this time? Well, we're just, we got to move. Our family's too large and it's time for us to go. Oh, time for you to go. See, I step right on that. And they feel like I'm just waiting to talk. I'm not listening. So I need to allow a pause, pause, pause. Maybe repeat back a bit of what they said. Oh, okay. So just outgrown the home. And then maybe ask a clarifying question. So bottom line, guys, slow down. Slow down.
I like that. I like that a lot. Opens the door for communication, for them to actually think, process, and then respond, right? Pause, pause, pause. So if we step on the end of their sentences, we know we're doing something bad.
Well, what'll happen is, if that's a habit, and some of you do have that habit, you'll find yourself 2 or 3 questions in, they'll just stop talking. It's like, I give up. He's not listening. So that's a bad one. Ask your friends and family. If you think you do it, ask your friends and family to catch you, call you out on it, and help you break that habit, right? So you don't do it with your customers.
Yeah, let's practice with friends and family. Love that. Big questions. We want to avoid those, don't we?
Yeah. And it's okay to ask things like, what caused you to want to make a move at this time? But, the more you can hone it down to the more specific, just they don't want to struggle to answer. So just really think about, why am I asking this? What's my purpose? What's my outcome? So there you go. You gain information, they feel special, find the hot buttons, find the pain, and help them self-realize what you know is important for them to realize. So yeah, this was my suggestion, Sean, 3 to 5 questions at least. Before any important phone call, before any important consult, negotiation, just write them down, put them in order of importance, and try to anticipate answers, objections, so that you're ready for them.
Had somebody ask, go back to the last slide. We're running short on time, guys. Maybe take a quick screenshot of that in the next couple of seconds. And Debbie, we got to just kind of finish up here if we can.
You got it. So I think we've already covered this. I think we're good to go. And just remember, it's all about them. So establishing commonality makes a lot of it about you. Establishing rapport makes it all about them.
Yep. Yeah, so good. And guys, you get the gist of this, but it's important questions. It's softer questions. It's avoiding the whys, doing this and establishing rapport. So important and helpful for us.
Yeah, I think my job as a great salesperson is to help them overcome their fear and hesitation to achieve their goal. And how do I know what their goal is if I don't ask the right questions? So guys, again, that QR code in the beginning, that was for the course. And Sean, you're welcome to post that on the Landvoice website so they can find that easily. This QR code is if you feel like it's time to hire a coach and you'd like to talk to me about what it's like to coach with Forward, because we have a relationship with Landvoice, with Brivity. If you choose to coach with us, we automatically give you a discount because it's a member's discount. So if you want to talk with me about that, that's the QR code to scan. And Sean, I think we also recorded this today, right? Because I saw what someone
recorded it. We'll be sending it out. We'll also be putting it on the Landvoice YouTube page, usually by Tuesday the following week. So give us a couple days. We'll have that up on our YouTube page. Debbie, thanks so much. I know the challenge with the voice. You rocked it. Appreciate you today.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Everybody have a good weekend. Talk to you soon.